What is up, guys? It's DJ Rick Webb, and this is DJ Tips episode number 5, Subwoofer Placement Tips. If you're looking at me and saying, he's wearing the exact same shirt that he did in the speaker placement video, and that's because I just filmed the speaker placement video, and you're seeing this one later. And if you haven't seen the speaker placement video where I talked about placement, where to put your speakers, how high up to put your speakers, how to multiply and add speakers along the line, the link is right there. Go check it out. For the most part, when we're talking about the big 18-inch subwoofers or the 15-inch subwoofers, one rule comes into mind that is king among all rules. Always put your subwoofers on the ground. Do not put them up on a stage. Put them on the ground, in front of the stage. This is because, compared to having a speaker off the ground, putting it on the ground adds 3 decibels, which effectively will help significantly increase the bass output. And the only other rule you need to know before we jump on the paper and start drawing out stuff and showing you placements of subwoofers in the room is that subwoofers, like speakers, when you want to increase how loud it is, you have to increase in doubles. If you have one subwoofer, to make it sound even louder, you need to add another subwoofer. If you want to increase how loud those 2 subwoofers are, you need to add 2 more. If you want to go even further than that, you gotta add 4 more. The only, and I'm saying the only exception I've ever seen for doing 3 subwoofers, which is actually what I did a lot before I got my PRX 18-inch subwoofers, was I had this Eon 18-inch subwoofer right here, and I had 2 PRX 15-inch subwoofers right here. I actually used to pair these 15-inch subwoofers on either side of this Eon subwoofer. This actually worked very well, and let me explain why. 15-inch subwoofers produce very good punchy mid bass. 18-inch subwoofers are really good at producing the boomy bass, the really big boom bass pounding sound you hear. Punchy, boomy is how I would describe them. So when you pair them together, a 15-inch, an 18-inch, and another 15-inch, it basically, they complement each other and overall create a fuller bass sound, which effectively, when listening to 2 15s versus the 2 15s plus the 18, you could actually notice a strong difference in how loud the bass was and the actual sound of the bass coming from the subwoofers. Now let's jump on over onto the paper and let's talk about placements. Alright, so just like the speaker tips video, we are back in our standard room here with the DJ booth over here, the dance floor here, and all the tables and chairs and everything over here. Before, what we were talking about, we said we were going to set up our speakers on either side of the DJ booth. Now, you can also do this with your subwoofers. It's a very common thing for people to set up their subwoofers underneath of their speakers and use pole mounts for the speakers. I do it all the time. There's one problem with that you might run into. I don't run into it a lot just because I have very loud subwoofers with 1500 watt amplifiers. But if you're using cheaper speakers, this effect might be more noticeable because you're not actually getting a lot of bass to start with. What happens is a phenomena called power alley. And what happens is, through this middle section right here, all this is actually amplified bass. The bass from this subwoofer and this subwoofer combine in the middle to produce this very strong bass in the middle. And in terms of weddings and events where you're trying to produce a nice hot spot on the dance floor right here, which I stated in speaker tips is the ultimate goal, is to produce a very strong hot spot on the dance floor with light and airy music around the rest of the room, works very well. And the one issue you will find with power alley is this thing called dead spots. Right in here, let me change the color, we'll do red. Right in here and right in here, this is effectively, almost all the times, a dead zone, where there's little to no bass in this area right here in front of either subwoofer, with a little bit of bass on the sides and a strong bass signal here in the middle. This is not ideal when you are talking about high school events or dances, where you want even bass coverage throughout the whole room. So what do we do to fix this? Again, we got the DJ booth and we got the dance floor here, and you guys probably know where I'm going with this. So we have our top setup here on tripods, and what we do is we put our subwoofer here in the middle. And actually, this is the ideal setup if you have 2 subwoofers for a school dance, 2 of them here, or even if you just have 1 subwoofer in a standard setup, is to put it in the middle, right dead smack in the middle of the dance floor. And what this will do is it will produce bass like this, and it'll travel nice and evenly throughout the room. And to go along with the subwoofer actually evenly distributing the bass throughout the room, when you have 2 subwoofers here paired together, that's called coupling your subwoofers, this actually will add 3 dB to the overall sound system. And like we said before, when you put them on the ground, you already have 3 dB. So together, effectively, when you put 2 subwoofers on the ground and you pair them together, you're getting 6 dB increase. Like we were stating with speakers when we said we wanted to stay 8 feet from this wall, and we wanted to stay 8 feet from this wall, and we wanted to stay within 1 to 2 feet of the wall for speakers. These rules apply also to subwoofers, except the 1 to 2 feet rule actually in turn will increase your sound. So let's look here. Now what we can do to increase that 6 dB that we have right now even further, instead of having your subwoofers 8 feet or more away from the wall, say you put them up against the wall. You take your 2 subwoofers and put them up against the wall, or your 1 subwoofer up against a wall. You actually add for another 3 dB to the system. And you can even go further than this. You can actually put your subwoofers here in the corner, facing directly into this corner right here. So we're facing into the corner. So you're within 1 to 2 feet of this wall and 1 to 2 feet of this wall in the corner. This is called corner loading. And what you get out of corner loading is not only are you paired with 1 wall, you're paired with 2 walls. So you get another 3 dB increase, effectively bringing you now up to 12 dB when you put it on the ground, you couple it together with another subwoofer, and you bring it up against 2 walls in the corner. Now there are some drawbacks to corner loading and putting subwoofers up against a wall. Say your dance floor is right here and your DJ booth is right here. Now we put our tops here and we're gonna corner load 1 or 2 subwoofers in the corner. For every 10 feet away from the dance floor that a subwoofer is, you lose 3 dB over that 10 feet. So ideally, corner loading does not always work effectively. So in the case here that we say that the dance floor is 10 feet away from this corner where we're corner loading our subwoofers, we're effectively increasing 3 dB and losing 3 dB at the same time, effectively canceling and making it completely pointless to put our subwoofers in the corner. And the same thing applies if you have your subwoofers back here against the wall, you have 1 or 2 back here against the wall. If this distance is 10 feet or more, again, every 10 feet you lose 3 dB, 3 BB. Yeah. 3 dB. Basically stating that it doesn't matter if you have it up against the wall or if you have it here. One thing I will say is that if you don't have the ability to add time delay to your subwoofers and your speakers in your system, you're better off trying to keep your subwoofers in the same plane as your speakers. That meaning that if your speaker is here and here, you put your subwoofer here because the plane that the sound starts at is the same. If the sound of the subwoofer starts back here and your speakers are up here, this is going to come up and there's going to be a slight delay in this sound, making it sound a little weird out here on the dance floor. So if you run into the scenario where it's like 8 to 10 feet away and you don't have time delay, you're better off just keeping your subwoofers underneath in the same plane as your speakers. That is all the tips I got for you guys on subwoofer placement. Let's just review the tips that I stated to you guys. First off, always put your subwoofers on the ground. Never put them up on a stage if you can avoid it. Like I said, that effectively gives you an additional 3 dB, which really doesn't help much, But if you are coupling two subwoofers together, you get another 3 dB if you're coupling two subwoofers together. And say you add another 2 subwoofers to that, you gain even more dB. We also learned about this phenomena called power alley, which is when you have a subwoofer on either side of your dance floor or wherever you're set up. It effectively creates power alley in the middle, which is heavy, stronger bass in the middle, dead zones mostly in front of the subwoofers, and lighter bass throughout. This works well for weddings, not so much for dances and concerts where you want an evenly distributed bass throughout the room. The best thing for you to do at those is to pair all your subwoofers together, couple them all together right in front in the middle of the dance floor or the concert area. That way the bass evenly distributes better throughout the room. Lastly, like we talked about in speaker placement, same rules apply to subwoofers, and that is to stay within 1 to 2 feet of a wall or to stay 8 feet away from a wall to avoid canceling out any frequencies. But subwoofers, in some scenarios, if you pair them up against the wall, they add another 3 dB. And effectively, if you put it up against 2 walls in a corner, known as corner loading, you add 6 dB because you have 2 walls that you are pairing against. The one thing you want to keep in mind when you're putting subwoofers up against walls and you're corner loading subwoofers is that for every 10 feet you move that subwoofer from the dance floor, or where you would have had your subwoofer traditionally in front of your speaker setup, you lose 3 dB of sound, which counteracts the 3 dB or the 6 dB that you just gained by corner loading or putting it up against the wall. One last thing with corner loading and putting subwoofers up against walls, yes, in corner loading you actually do put the front of the subwoofer facing into the corner. Now against walls, you don't really have to do that. Most of the time, most people just leave the subwoofer facing out with the back of the sub up against the wall. It doesn't really help you much pointing a subwoofer into a flat wall. Pointing it into a corner works well though. Anyways guys, that is all for this video on subwoofer placements and subwoofer tips. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, something you think I screwed up, leave it in the comment section down below. Be sure to give me a thumbs up on this video if you happen to like this video, by chance. If you aren't already, hit that subscribe button. I post all kinds of product reviews, DJ tips, gig logs, all kinds of awesome stuff like that on this channel. And if you want to take that subscribing a step further and make sure that YouTube doesn't actually unsubscribe you from my channel, because they do unsubscribe people from channels, hit the bell. It'll notify you when I post a new video, and you can be part of the notification squad on this channel. And you can be one of the first ones to view this video, the first one to ask me the question that's been on your mind, because I answer all the questions that are posted on the videos when I post them. Anyways guys, my name is DJ Rick Webb. Keep them records spinning. I hope that these tips are helping out all of you guys in your pursuit of becoming bigger and better DJs. Peace out.